The shouting started before Daniel even realized it was directed at him. The hospital waiting room had been quiet only moments earlier, filled with the soft hum of fluorescent lights, the distant beeping of machines, and the tired breathing of people who had been waiting far too long. But suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the room like a blade. "Move for the VIP!" Daniel Carter slowly lifted his head. For a moment he thought they were talking to someone else. After all, the waiting room was crowded. Elderly couples sat hunched together, mothers rocked restless children, and a few exhausted workers leaned against the walls with coffee cups clutched in trembling hands. But then a security guard stepped closer to Daniel and repeated the words with impatience. "Sir, we need this seat cleared immediately. Very important patient arriving." Daniel looked down at the small girl sleeping against his chest. Her tiny fingers were curled into the worn fabric of his jacket, as if even in sleep she was afraid the world might take something else away from her. He gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, and then he responded calmly. "I understand," he said quietly, "but my daughter hasn't slept in almost 2 days. If you don't mind, we'll stay here a little longer." Before the story continues, take a second to support the channel. If you believe the world needs more kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us what really matters, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The security guard looked stunned. People usually moved immediately when they heard the word VIP. Hospitals were strange places that way. Wealth, power, and influence somehow followed people even into rooms filled with pain and uncertainty. But Daniel didn't look angry. He didn't raise his voice. He simply held his daughter a little closer and waited. Across the room, several people had started watching. The guard sighed and spoke into his radio. Within seconds, another man arrived, this one wearing a dark suit that looked far too expensive for a hospital corridor. His expression carried the kind of confidence that comes from a lifetime of being obeyed. He walked directly toward Daniel. "You'll need to move," the man said flatly. "Our guest requires space." Daniel lifted his eyes slowly. Up close, the exhaustion on his face was impossible to hide. The dark circles beneath his eyes told a story of sleepless nights, long shifts, and worries no parent should ever have to carry alone. Still, his voice remained calm. "My daughter just fell asleep," he said. "She's been through a lot today." The suited man glanced briefly at the child. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her cheeks were pale and a hospital wristband hung loosely around her tiny arm. But sympathy wasn't part of the man's job description. "I'm sorry," he replied, though his tone suggested he wasn't. "But this seat is needed." Daniel looked around the room. There were empty chairs scattered near the back. Plenty of space, really, yet this one seat, the one where a tired father held his sick child, had somehow become the most important seat in the building. Still, Daniel didn't argue. He simply spoke again softly. "With respect," he said, "my daughter needs this seat more than your very important person does." A murmur spread across the waiting room. The suited man's expression hardened. "Do you know who is arriving?" Daniel shook his head. "And honestly," he said quietly, "it doesn't matter." That answer seemed to irritate the man more than anything else. Outside the glass doors, a sleek black car had just pulled up. Security guards straightened. Nurses whispered to one another. Even a few doctors glanced toward the entrance. Whoever this VIP was, they were clearly someone important. But Daniel didn't look. His entire world was resting against his chest. Her name was Lily, and 2 weeks earlier, Daniel's life had nearly collapsed. He had been a mechanic for most of his adult life, working long hours in a small garage at the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. More importantly, it allowed him to be there for Lily. Her mother had left when Lily was only 2. Daniel never spoke badly about her. He simply told Lily that sometimes adults get lost and have trouble finding their way back. So Daniel became everything: father, mother, teacher, chef, bedtime storyteller, and best friend. Life wasn't easy, but it was full of love. Then one afternoon, Lily fainted while playing in the park. At first, Daniel thought it was just exhaustion, but the doctors thought differently. Tests followed, more tests. Then the words no parent ever wants to hear. A rare blood condition, serious, treatable but expensive. Daniel sold his old motorcycle first, then the small savings he had been building for Lily's future. Finally, he began working double shifts at the garage. But today had been the hardest day of all. Lily had undergone a painful treatment, and afterward she had cried until her voice disappeared. Now, for the first time in hours, she was sleeping peacefully, and Daniel had no intention of waking her. The hospital doors suddenly opened. A group of people entered. At the center of them was a woman in her early 40s, dressed elegantly but walking with quiet restraint rather than arrogance. Her name was Victoria Langford. Most people in the city knew that name. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar medical technology company. Hospitals across the country used machines her company designed. She was powerful, influential, and very accustomed to special treatment. The suited man hurried to her side and whispered something. Victoria's eyes shifted toward Daniel. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. The suited man finished explaining and gestured toward the seat. For a moment, Victoria said nothing. She simply studied the scene, the tired father, the sleeping child, the tension in the room. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria didn't walk toward the empty seat. She walked toward Daniel. People instinctively stepped aside as she approached. Daniel noticed the movement and finally looked up. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Victoria's gaze softened when she saw Lily's fragile face. Then she asked quietly, "How old is she?" "6," Daniel replied. Victoria knelt slightly to see Lily better. "What's her name?" "Lily." The suited man looked uncomfortable. "Ms. Langford," he interrupted nervously, "we should move to the private waiting area." Victoria raised a hand, silencing him instantly. Her attention returned to Daniel. "What's wrong with her?" Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to sharing his life story with strangers, but something in her expression felt sincere, so he told her. Not dramatically, not angrily, just honestly. As he spoke, the waiting room grew quiet again. Victoria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she slowly stood. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She turned to the security team. "This seat belongs to them," she said firmly. The suited man blinked in confusion. "But Ms. Langford, you're the VIP." "No," she interrupted calmly. She gestured toward Lily. "She is." A ripple of surprise moved through the waiting room. Victoria then pulled a chair from the corner of the room and sat down beside Daniel. No special treatment, no demands, just another human being waiting. Minutes passed. Then Victoria spoke again. "Where do you work, Daniel?" He looked slightly surprised. She remembered his name from the brief introduction. "Small garage on Miller Street," he replied. "Mechanic?" He nodded. Victoria smiled faintly. "My father was a mechanic," she said. Daniel looked at her more closely now. Something about the way she said it carried weight. "He worked 18 hours a day," she continued quietly. "Raised 3 kids alone after my mother passed." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. The room was silent again. Victoria looked at Lily one more time. Then she turned to her assistant. "Cancel my afternoon meetings." "Ma'am? I'll be staying here." The assistant looked completely lost. "But the board, they'll survive," she said calmly. Victoria then faced Daniel again. "I'd like to help." Daniel shook his head immediately. "We're managing," he said. Pride wasn't something he wore loudly, but it lived deep inside him. Victoria didn't argue. Instead, she said something unexpected. "My company developed the treatment your daughter just received." Daniel blinked. "The machines?" She nodded. "I've seen thousands of reports about patients," she continued softly. "Charts, data, statistics." Her eyes drifted toward Lily. "But I rarely see the people behind them." Another quiet moment passed. Then Victoria stood again. She stepped aside and made a phone call. Her voice was low, but several people caught pieces of the conversation. "Yes, immediately. Charity program. Full coverage. No publicity." When she finished, she returned to Daniel. "The hospital will take care of Lily's treatments," she said gently. Daniel stared at her, stunned. "I can't accept that." Victoria smiled. "You already have." He frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" She glanced around the waiting room. "You reminded everyone here, including me, what real courage looks like." Daniel looked down at Lily again. For the first time in weeks, the crushing weight in his chest felt lighter. Not gone, but lighter, and sometimes that's enough. 2 hours later, Lily woke up. Her small eyes blinked sleepily. "Daddy, I'm here," Daniel whispered. She smiled weakly. "Did I sleep long?" "Long enough." Victoria was still sitting nearby. When Lily noticed her, she waved shyly. Victoria waved back. Then Lily said something that made everyone smile. "Daddy, that lady waited with us." Daniel chuckled softly. Yes, he said, she did. And before this story ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness still exists even in the busiest and most powerful places in the world, please take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And here's a special request for everyone watching. Comment the word kindness below if you believe small acts of compassion can change someone's entire life. Because sometimes the real very important person in this world isn't the person with power or wealth. Sometimes it's the tired single dad who refuses to wake his daughter, and the quiet courage it takes to simply say, no.